Why don't we go? So Happy New Year, everyone. Happy budget season. We're all going to get to be really good friends, seeing each other kind of every week for a while now. So should all be really good. Let's just do the formality of taking a roll call to open the meeting, and then I'll read through the agenda and we'll get that stuff done. So I'm just going to spin in the order people are on my screen for a motion for opening the meeting. Natalie?
Yes.
Jane?
I move to open the meeting.
All right, second?
Second.
Okay, then let's just do the quick roll call. Natalie?
Yes, aye.
Jane?
Aye.
Wasim? You're muted, but I'll take that as a yes. Steve T?
Aye.
Mike? Nora?
Aye.
And I think Steve G just entered. Maybe not. That might be somebody else. Okay.
I think it was Wendy. She said she called in.
Oh, she's calling in. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I think we're good. Before I get on, let me just ask for a advisory member volunteer for minutes. Maybe somebody who hasn't done it for a while.
I'll do it.
Okay, great. That'd be excellent. Thanks, Natalie. Okay, so agenda. We'll start with liaison reports. We'll do budget review sessions. And tentatively, unless there's some issue with people getting on the call, we'll do it in the order on the agenda: the assessor's office, collector, town clerk, treasurer, accountant, and advisory committee. And then our last order of business is just to approve minutes. So does anybody have any topics, agenda topics, or proposed changes to the agenda before we plow ahead? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So liaison reports. I've got a few things to mention, but before getting to that, any other members of advisory with anything to check in on and to report back?
And from my end, had a meeting with Chief Galvin and just discussed the budget. The big item, which is expected from the regionalization of the dispatch, is that the overtime is going to go down. If you recall, with the dispatch regionalization, there's a lot of credits and incentives early on. So we're going to reap the majority of the benefits up front, and then as we progress and the incentives run out, I would argue they kind of cancel each other out in the long term, but in the short term, we'll see a reduction in the overtime. So that's the major thing we're going to see in the budget, essentially the reduction in the overtime. I don't want to get into too much detail, but that's essentially the headline. So we'll see a good good reduction in about $100,000 in salaries, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay, thanks, Wasim. Anybody else?
I'll just mention from the Council on Aging, the last time we met, I reported that they were looking to increase the hours for the assistant director from 27 to 35. And I got a subsequent message that they also want to increase the elder advocate hours by 5 from 19 to 24 hours. And not clear, is 20 the cutoff for benefits? So that could, I guess that would put that into a benefited position.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Jane, I didn't get, what did you say? What did you say? The assistant, what's the first thing you said? Assistant director?
Assistant director, they want to increase from 27 hours to 35 hours, and the elder advocate, they want to increase from 19 hours to 24 hours.
And what did we say, puts them in a benefited position, how many hours?
Well, the elder advocate would go over 20, so
20 is the key number. Okay, thanks, Jane. And I realize I should have said at the top, of course, that this is the Sherborn Advisory Committee meeting of January 3rd, 2023, just so nobody gets mad at me for not saying that at when they watch the recording from the top. Okay, so I've got a few things to mention.
Dan, may I just
yes.
ask a quick follow-up question?
Of course, of course.
Is it just automatic based on the number of hours, whether a position is benefited or not? It's really just based on the number of hours, no other, criteria?
I think it's just a part-time versus full-time, and full-time, in quotes, full-time is more than 20 hours. I don't know if that's exactly the right way to say it, but I think that's effectively the way it works.
Thanks.
Okay, I think everybody on the call knows this, but remember we've shifted the date of the public hearing to March 18th, pulled it forward a week. That's on the updated schedule that got sent around. Also, just by way of making sure everybody is aware, I believe on January 14th, Saturday, the select board is going to meet to review the budgets that over which they have purview. So I think Steve and I are planning to go to be there to kind of cover for advisory. Not something that anybody else I think should feel obliged to go. Of course, you're welcome to go. My understanding is it's going to be hybrid, part in person, part on Zoom. So welcome to join in, but don't feel obliged to. And I think Steve and I can report back at the following advisory meeting of anything that came up there that will be relevant for us. Also, I'll mention that Jane, Steve, Mike, and I are going to meet with Dawn Fator on Monday morning to talk about school budget stuff, and we'll report back on anything interesting that emerges from that. And also, I just mentioned that in the last month, I met with the chair of Dover Warrant. The Warrant Committee in Dover has a new chair, Melissa Herman. She seems terrific. We had a great meeting, and makes me hopeful that might be able to collaborate in a way that would be productive on our common issues. But given the history, we'll see how that goes. But I am hopeful on that. I also met with Klaus Ullman today to talk about IT budget stuff. He'll be presenting in a couple of weeks. Just as a heads up, they're anticipating a pretty good-sized increase. This is part of the kind of multi-phase modernization plan for the town's IT efforts. And so it's a significant change. And in a couple of weeks, we'll have a chance to have a conversation about the specifics of that and so on. But just wanted to kind of flag for people that that's coming and something to look out for. So that's everything I have on liaison reports. Unless anybody has a follow-up or anything else on liaison reports to offer.
Dan, I would just mention that if any advisory members for some strange reason are planning on attending that January 14th Saturday meeting, they should let you know probably, so that we don't potentially run into a quorum issue.
Yeah.
It would require five advisory members to all have a non-life on a Saturday and want to actually go to a meeting like that, but it would be a good idea.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Steve. I know you and I are committed to the non-life that Saturday. No one else needs to be, but if you're inclined to, just Steve's right on with that suggestion, please let me know so we can keep track and figure things out if we are going to have any kind of a quorum issue. Anything else? Okay, so we'll get on to budget stuff. I had just a couple framing comments to make before we get to things. So just I emailed around this afternoon the latest version of the budget model. Thanks to Deb for a lot of work the last few weeks and getting all the new budget information into that. That's super helpful. Couple just highlights to sort of set the big picture stage. With requested budgets as they've come in, undoubtedly, there are still things that are going to change and move around. But with that, total operating expenses projected to be up in fiscal year 24, a little more than 6%. Tax levy goes up by a similar amount. And given the guesstimated change, of course, very tentative guesstimated change in assessed values in FY24, tax rate projected not to change too much. Of course, tax bills would be going up in line with the increase in the tax levy, something in that 6% neighborhood. As we discussed last meeting, looking ahead to FY25 on a plausible set of projections of how different elements of the budget may move around. Limited new growth, flat, slightly down, property values again, projection, who knows what's actually going to happen. Looks like in FY25 could be looking at a sizable increase in tax rate and possibly a need for a Prop 2.5 override, given how those numbers are lining up. So just I want to just keep mentioning that because that is just all not so much for this year, but next year we're going to have, I think, some interesting challenges, and just want everyone to kind of have that in their back pocket and information set as how that's lining up. So having laid out all that happy news, let's get on to doing budget reviews. So plan was to do these in the order on the agenda. If anybody who's presenting has a particular constraint and you really want to go earlier because you need to be somewhere later or some other constraint, certainly flexible on changing the order. But unless someone has a concern like that, we'll just go in the order on the agenda. Looking forward to a congenial discussion on budget issues. We'll do this as we did last year, with each department head presenting however they wish to the committee. I'm happy to do a screen share of each budget if that's helpful. Just let me know what you'd like me to do. And of course, picking up on the email that Steve Tsai sent around, of course, highlight and explain any significant changes in any spots where things are different than guidance, and let us know about any capital items. Don't think that's an issue for any of these, but if there is something, please let us know about that. And again, don't think this is an issue, but if there's anything on warrant articles, we're going to save that for a later meeting. So with all that said, why don't we jump in? And Wendy, if you want to start us off, that would be great. I'm happy to screen share for you, or if you want to, that's great, whatever you'd like to do.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you mind doing a screen share for
Sure.
me? Thank you, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Give me just 1 second to get that set up.
Okay.
Okay, can everybody see that? Is that readable and good?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Wendy, please take it away.
Sure. So one notable change in the assessor's budget is under salaries. It's the fourth line down, board member compensation. That was discussed last year. It's $5,400 for the year. And what offset a portion of that increase of the budget was, if you'll notice under, let's see, under consulting services, $13,000 in 23. That's been reduced down to 4,000 because we have our revaluation completed. So in another 3 years, that will have to be built back into the budget, but we have a three-year respite for that. Everything else has pretty much stayed flat. I reduced my office supplies. I did a little bit a little bit above the average. The reval software maintenance, which is one of my largest expenses, didn't increase this year, which was great. It actually went down, or actually it stayed the same for the past 2 years, and then going forward for 24, it's still 10,285. So other than that, I mean, I don't know if you guys have any questions for me. It's not a very robust budget, but
Thanks, Wendy.
sure.
So I can't see everybody. So I see Jeremy. Jeremy, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick note for everybody as you go through the budgets on the salary lines, where everybody followed the guidance for the 4.5% salary adjustment. That doesn't always reflect to an even 4.5% in the budget, as you see in the budget numbers. So you're going to see things that are close to 4, maybe 4.5, but in the salary calculation sheets that go into these numbers, it's a 4.5%. But I just want to point that out. You're going to see that consistently as you go through the budgets, that just the way that things calculate from year over year, the increase is not always 4.5% year over year.
Okay, thanks. And Jeremy, my understanding is that has to do with salaries being converted to an hourly rate. The hourly rate goes up the 4.5%. And then it depends on the configuration of when weekends fall and how many work days during the year as compared to weekends during the year. And so some years,
that's all part of it.
some years the number comes in less than COLA amount, and some years it would come in higher than the COLA amount. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That is
But
correct.
rest assured, in the actual calculation behind these numbers, it's a 4.5%.
Okay, thanks. That's very helpful. Thanks. So other advisory members with and either raise your hand or just jump in, because I can't see everybody the way if I keep the screen share up here. Anybody else? Question?
This is not a comment about the budget, but Jeremy, are you the new town administrator?
Yes. Hello.
Okay. All right. Well,
Meet
nice
you.
to meet you.
Wasim, I think you missed our last meeting when we did introductions. So Wasim, Jeremy, please meet each other.
Yeah,
Hello.
yeah,
Nice to
yeah. I
meet you.
missed the meeting. I was in California at the time. Yeah. Nice to meet you. All right.
Thank you.
Jane.
Question follow-up on Jeremy, your comment about how the salaries are calculated. Have we ever checked in with council on whether there could potentially be any issues with, calculating salaries for non-hourly employees or, exempt employees on an hourly basis as if they were non-exempt?
I can't say that, I can't say for sure if council's ever been advised, but this is the way we've done it for a number of years. And it's kind of standard among most municipalities because of the way the fiscal years work. So next year, we're going to work 260 days versus this year where we work 261 days. And so it seems like it's less, but so the following year, when we work 262 days, if you just did a flat 4.5%, you would actually be getting a pay decrease based on the number of days you work. So I guess we could check with council if necessary, but it seems to be kind of accepted standard practice.
I've seen this practice used in other communities, if that helps.
Yeah, it would be a 5-minute conversation because it's an easy question for anyone who does this kind of work. But I would hate to find out that we're potentially creating an issue by treating exempt, calculating their salaries as if they were non-exempt.
I'm happy to ask that question and get back to you.
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. That'd be great. Probably, as you said, many communities do it. Probably it's all fine, but seems like easy thing to just check out and verify.
Hi, Dan, it's Nora. May I ask a question?
Of course, please go ahead.
I'm just curious for this and not just singling out one part-time, but just how many hours is part-time for this position? And is it appropriate to ask for how many hours other positions are as we go forward? What a part-time person is? Is that 20 hours, 25?
Are you speaking specifically to my budget, Nora?
I guess we could start with yours. I'm just curious. and then
Sure,
move forward.
sure.
Thank you.
Right. So I'm part-time 35 hours. And the administrative assistant is part-time 20 hours. Once you reach that 20 hours, you become a benefited position. Anything below that, a matter of fact, I think there was an employee who worked 19.75 hours at one point, so that it, wouldn't go into a benefited situation. And then the field work, that's a completely different, that's a per inspection situation. So I don't know if that helps.
Thank you.
Sure.
And that's actually reminded me that I misspoke before, in that people can be part-time at over 20 hours. It's not a part-time, full-time thing at 20 hours. So I misspoke before. That's just the cutoff for benefits or no benefits. Anybody else?
Just follow up for Nora. With each of these sheets, there's a second tab that actually shows the number of hours.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you.
And here it is. Thanks, Wasim. That's great. So should be, Nora, for each of these, that there's this level of detail that one can dig into.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
One quick question, sort of non-substantive, but Wendy, Dan and I noticed this earlier when we were looking at the budgets. You're listed as assistant assessor. Is that your official title? Where is that?
No, it's not. The official title on the job description is Director of Assessing. And Deb has been working every time she sees, sometimes I'm the deputy assessor, assistant assessor. So, but we can update that, right, Deb?
Yeah, I'll make a note of it. I think it might just be on the spreadsheet. I think we corrected it in Vadar, but not
We
on the
did.
budget worksheet. Yeah, so
Yeah,
we'll get there.
yeah.
Yeah.
I even went back to last year's budget to be like, nope, it still says assistant assessor last year too. I was like, that's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, Steve and I both noticed that and thought,
I noticed it too.
that's a
I was
little,
like,
that's,
yeah.
maybe there's stuff happening in town hall that we don't know about and, need to keep track of. Okay, great.
I'm the undercover assessor.
I'll leave it in this version as director of assessment.
All right, thank you. Any other
Any-
questions?
Yeah, anybody else? Okay, great. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you.
So let's go on to Pam. And give me 1 second. I'm going to try doing a screen share a different way to see if I can do this so I can see everybody at the same time. No, that's not going to work. Hold on 1 second here. Okay. All right. Pam, the floor is yours.
All right. Happy New Year, everybody. So mine's pretty easy too. I did just make some notes on some of the things that I changed or that are a little different from last year. The first is that I combined tax education with meetings. So I just combined the two of them together. We're collecting a higher percentage of motor vehicle excise bills on our own in-house, Tish and I. So therefore, I'm sending less to the deputies. So I decreased my tax collector deputy line item down to 2,500. So that was a huge savings that we're gonna put in this year. I don't anticipate a significant increase in my tax title accounts. So I lowered that one just a little bit as I'm trying to figure my way through all this tax title stuff. And both Tish and I will be attending our collector school for certifications in August and a conference in June, which aren't local. So I put a little bit extra money into our training and travel and lodging line item. And our dues and subscriptions are just the MCTA membership and a white page subscription that I use. So I just lowered that to make that a little bit more accurate. And our salaries are just the COLA. Does anybody have any questions?
So Pam, I have
Yeah.
one, and not really a question, just
Yeah.
I'm new enough at this. Could you just say a little more about how it works with collecting excise tax in-house versus the deputy collector? I don't know
Yeah, sure.
exactly what the structure is, and if you could just say a
Right,
minute.
no,
on that,
good
that'd be great.
question. So the excise tax bills come from the registry of motor vehicles, and we issue them and send them out to everybody. They're due 30 days after the bill date. And once those aren't paid, we'll issue a demand, which is another $15 fee, and that's due 15 days later. And then in the past, what we've been doing is after that, we just send it right off to our deputy collector, Kelly and Ryan. And then they start charging them a notice fee, a warrant fee. And what we're doing instead of doing that is emailing a copy of the bill or tracking the people down. When we send out another motor vehicle or a real estate bill, we'll attach that to them and tell them, hey, this bill's outstanding. So just having more communication with our residents about bills that are owed to them. A lot of times people just forget. And then so we don't have, when we collect the money, we don't have to pay any fees to the deputy collector because we didn't use their service to collect that money. We did it on our own.
And the deputy collector is, again, this is a really naive question, but is a state employee or that's a town employee?
They're not a town employee. It's just somebody that we contract.
Got it.
That,
And we
can
pay
issue
them,
summons and
Okay, yeah,
we
and
pay
then we
them,
pay them
yep.
per case or per hour or something like that.
per motor vehicle bill that we have them
Okay,
collect.
okay,
Yep.
okay, great. That's great.
Yep.
Thank you. Now I see all those pieces fit. Thank you.
Yes.
Jane, please go ahead. You are muted.
Sorry about that.
Perfect.
It looks like there was a shift of hours from the permanent part-time to the assistant tax collector. Is that something, first of all, am I understanding that correctly? And is that something that's expected to be, is that a one-shot thing? Or, I'm just curious as to whether that is a permanent change or expected to be a permanent change or what's going on with that.
Permanent change. Yep. I shifted to that because I just want to check one thing before I speak. Okay, I just wanted to see if my predecessor was on the meeting. I found since I took over that having the tax clerks, she used to have, 3 or 4 tax clerks that would, work in the office on a rotating schedule. And that it just wasn't enough hours to keep them adequately trained. So by giving my assistant collector, Tish, more hours, we're getting more work done because she's more efficient and productive and is using the system all the time. So she remembers how to use it and all that. So I've kept some money in there for my clerk budget. So like if we're away at school, that we can have somebody, Elizabeth, come in and see all of
Come on
that. But it's more efficient not to have the clerks, working 4 hours a week.
And this change isn't going across the 20-hour barrier. So this doesn't have anything to do with benefits. Doesn't change that at all, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody, Jane, anything further or anybody else? Okay. I think we're good. Thank you, Pam.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
All right. So, Jackie, we'll come to you. Give me a second and I can, if you like, I can share your budget up on screen. Is that good?
Yes, please.
Okay, give me 1 second and I will get that up.
So I'm going to do Department 161 first, which is the
Perfect.
town clerk budget.
Perfect. Okay, that should be good. Can everybody see that properly? Good. Okay. Jackie, please,
Okay.
the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dan. So the biggest jump that I have in the town clerk budget is under contractual services, where I put some notes in there. The town has been working since about 2019 on trying to update our bylaws to what they call code. So it's a codification project that was started when Carol Marpa was the clerk. Jeannie Guthrie in the select board budget got a grant for about $6,700, which started the project, and the rest of the money has to come out of my comes out of my budget. So basically what the codification project is it puts all of the bylaws and zoning bylaws online and make sure that we are in line with the current Mass General laws. There were about 140 questions that I had to go through during the summer, and I had to have some other department heads help me. A lot of our bylaws were not up to date. I can give you an example. Our dog bylaw, it says that all dogs must be licensed 3 months and older per Mass General law. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head what the Mass General law is, but the Mass General law actually says it's 6 months and over. So what the codification project did was went through all of our zoning bylaws, all of the general bylaws, corrected simple spelling errors, grammatical errors, Mass General laws that have been repealed, all of that. So all of this is going to be voted at the annual town meeting. And there is a maintenance cost that is due every year. There's about 132 towns that are using, have their bylaws and in code. It's called code. So that is where the extra money has gone in, is that there's a $1,200 maintenance fee, and then I have to plan for any updated bylaws. It could be less, it could be more. It just really depends on how many bylaw changes we have, if there's extra zoning bylaw changes, or whatever. For instance, I did speak to the Dover clerk. Her last year, her extra fund was about $1,600. But like I said, it's a guess right now on whatever. If we have 4 zoning bylaws, it could be a lot more money. But the bylaws will be online. They'll be searchable. They'll be easy for residents and for committee members and just regular employees to look at. And again, the codification project will keep our bylaws up to date and make sure that we are in line with all the Mass General laws and any changes and stuff that will be made. So it is an increase of about $1,000 from my last year's budget. The only other increase that I have is for memberships. I'm over for this year only by $35 for the elections and registration budget and the town clerk, but I am anticipating that dues are going to go up, and all the subscriptions and memberships that we belong to allow me to keep my certified municipal clerk status and all the trainings and stuff that we go to, so I can learn about all the new election laws. So that's basically it. Everything else I planned flat for the town clerk budget.
Thanks, Jackie.
Mhm.
So just one question off the top. So you said that town meeting votes on the codification project. Is the vote about whether to put it online, or what actually is the
It's to accept the codification project and to accept all of the changes. So everyone at town meeting the vendor is making up a list of all of the different changes.
Okay.
Like I said, I had to go through 140 questions, and some of them were pretty simple. It was just a spelling error, but all of those errors that were corrected, Mass General laws that were repealed. For instance, I had to go to the fire chief and the police chief, and they're like, yeah, this law has changed. Gino said, yes, this law has changed. So all of those changes will be in a list, and we'll just vote one article. We're not going to vote
Okay.
every single change,
Okay.
but it will be for the bylaws and for the general bylaws and for the zoning bylaws as well.
Because then the outcome of the codification project becomes the official version of the bylaw rather than some
Correct.
old version in a file cabinet somewhere, and this is
Correct.
the vote
Correct.
to shift it.
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
And
perfect.
every year, after I send in the certifications for the Attorney General's to the Attorney General's office from town meeting, they have 3 months to respond. Once we get their approval, then General Code will take those approvals and those changes and upload the code and update, the website. So all the
Okay.
code will be consistently up to date, and again, up to date with the Mass General laws.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else with questions for Jackie or comments? Such a quiet crowd. Okay, let's so on
Okay.
to elections, Jackie.
On to elections, yes.
Okay, give me just 1 second and I'll get that one.
Oh, yeah,
popped.
sorry.
For all these years of doing Zoom, you'd think I'd be faster, but the stuff still takes a while. Okay, there we go.
Okay, great. So again, for elections and registration, I made some notes about all the different changes. In terms of elections, we will have the March 24 presidential primary. Vote by mail has now become permanent. That was voted in 2022. And I can tell you for November, I spent over $800 on vote by mail postage. So it appears as though 50%, well, for November anyway, it's like 50% of the voting was done by mail and the rest was done in person. So I am anticipating that is going to continue. People seem to enjoy that, and unfortunately postage just keeps going up, and it's costing it's going to cost close probably 90 cents per ballot packet when I send it out for the March 24. So my postage budget, I did go up a little bit to account for that. Wherever I have extra money, I am being very cognizant. I'm trying to put that into postage because that money I can hold on to. So I am trying to be aware of that. Contractual services, let's see, that I was able to take down a little bit, about $1,000. Let's see, where else did I go down? I took down my office supplies a little bit, and let's see. That is really it. Again, the subscription membership, I'm at $235 again, so I bumped it up to $250, so it's only $15. And then the other increase is unfortunately census costs. And again, I'm going to be a little bit over my budget line this year because the postage came in about $150 over than what I had anticipated. And unfortunately, it's an unfunded mandate, and I have to send the census out every year. So I am anticipating that it's going to be close to the $2,000 for fiscal year 24.
Anybody with questions, comments for Jackie? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, Jackie. Thanks very
Okay.
much.
All right, thank you.
All right, so let's go on, Heidi, to you. And if you give me a second, I will share your budget. Heidi,
Great,
the
thank
floor
you,
is yours.
thank you. Just in case Nora was interested, the treasurer office has two people. I am a part-time benefited position at 30 hours, and then I have a part-time unbenefited treasurer assistant who is 10 hours a week. So that makes up the salary portion. And then for the expenses, changes that I'm putting down, I decreased the legal tax title legal fee a bit. FY21, FY22 actuals were actually higher than budgets because of what moves through land court. I still have 2 active foreclosures in land court, but right now, based on the number of potential people that have an interest, I don't foresee it closing out in this next year. So I did lower that a bit. Postage went up a bit. And that one too, I'm already going to be over budget in my postage this year, but I have some extra legal fees in it, so I'll be okay in the budget, but I did increase it slightly to 2,500. I decreased some of the supplies a bit, and not too much else has changed, so the overall decrease is a slight amount from last year. So I don't
Thanks, Heidi.
know.
Was that everything?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. Questions, comments on Heidi's budget?
I have kind of a low level general question. It applies to Heidi, but I feel like several of the budgets that we've seen today, the office supplies have been trending down. Is that basically just because so many more things are computerized now, so people just aren't using office supplies? Is that a trend that we can expect? And Heidi, you can answer, anybody else who's on the call can answer if it applies to their budgets as well.
I guess I could answer for me. Mine was mainly, I've had to buy a computer and a monitor in prior years, so I don't foresee having that, which is one of the reasons I did decrease it.
Okay.
But I do
I
think part of it going to digital records, that there is less paper.
And I would think moving forward, things like buying a computer and monitor would fall into an IT budget. Would that be accurate?
I would have to defer to Jeremy and some other people.
Well, that's still up for debate. That's one of the big unknowns, how we're going to handle things yet.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure Klaus and Jeremy have had discussions. I know I've had discussions with Klaus trying to figure out the best way to handle that.
Okay.
But it sounds like, Deb, right now, are those purchases still in departmental budgets or
They are,
out, with the possibility that maybe that'll get shifted around?
correct.
Yeah, okay. Just following up on Steve's question, anybody else who had a decrease in office supplies? Wendy, Pam, Jackie, any other
Yeah.
comments?
Yeah, so I'm a big electronic, less paper, digital. And I think, the pandemic, pushed the online a little even further, right? So it's definitely reduced the budget, my budget, for sure.
Thanks. Okay. Any other comments, questions for Heidi?
And may I just ask, what is the, not clear to me, the land court relationship with the, how that would have an impact? If you don't mind, maybe it's something simple, but just to educate me on this.
Sure. So that's part of our tax title process. So Pam has a tax title line for when people don't pay their taxes. She then has to go advertise and certify that these properties that are unpaid taxes, the town puts a lien on a property, and that gets filed in court. And then it gets turned over to the treasurer. So it gets it off of the tax collector side, gets moved to the treasurer, where now I have to handle it as possible town possession if we go through land court on a foreclosure. So we've had several properties where no one's paying taxes. It goes into mine, and it's actually a 16% interest rate. It's pretty hefty. So usually these are parcels that don't have a house on them. It may be more swampland. You know, it's people just don't have relatives who want to take care of it, and they just kind of let it go. Well, it's on our tax roll, and we have to do something with it. And what we have to do is we go through a foreclosure process on it. And the court has to identify anyone who has an interest in it, notify them this is happening. And it takes several years to get through a process. And it's probably about $10,000 per property to go through this legal process. And then land court would eventually decree that the town owns it and it becomes town property.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned this, I do remember hearing that, but I just forgot that that's part of the treasurer. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Perfect. Anybody else? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you.
Deb, let's come to you. And if you give me a second, I will
Alrighty.
share screen with your budget. Okay, Deb, the floor is yours.
Yeah, pretty similar to the other budgets. We really don't have any other changes in the staffing. The staffing, I'm full-time at 40 hours, as is the payroll and benefit coordinator at 40 hours. And right now, we still don't have our permanent part-time staffed because of the interim position. Right now I'm using the part-time assessor clerk is working the morning down in the assessor and coming up and working 16 hours a week for me. The position is actually supposed to be 30 hours a week. So I kept it in there at, well, it was 30 hours, and last year I moved it down to 25 hours. And so I just maintained it at 25 hours for next year as well. So the staffing is pretty much the same. And really the only changes I've made in the spending budget is the annual audit decreased by $10,000, of which $8,000 is what we pay for the biannual actuarial audit, which occurred this year. So next year will be a year off. And we do have a new audit firm, which their fees are a little bit lower. So I took another $2,000 off. And then I did increase the travel, lodging, and meals just to be a little bit more reflective of like FY22 kind of, you know, after the pandemic was over, I did go to some seminars and some trainings and things like that. So mileage is going to be a little bit higher. So besides that, we're pretty much status quo.
All right, thank you. Anybody with questions for Deb? Jane, go ahead, please.
I'm just curious who our new audit firm is.
It is Roselli and Clark. Yeah, we used Melanson and Heath for, I don't know, 19 years, I think. And then at the end of last year, they were having a lot of turnover issues. And so they got rid of a lot of their smaller clients, which weren't as cost beneficial, which included Sherborn. So I scrambled at the last minute, and I got a hold of Roselli and Clark, and they have already come out and did the audit. They came out and did it in October, and they're finalizing it right now. So I found them to be very very helpful. It was very interesting to have them come in because after having Melanson for 19 years, they looked at the same thing over and over and over again. And Roselli came in and looked at different things. They're very informative and very nice to work with.
All right.
And does that mean we'll have an early free cash certification? I know the waiting for the audit was sometimes an issue with that.
Yeah, no, I actually submitted everything to the DOR back at the end of, let's see, when was it back? End of October, early November, but we got delayed. Actually, I was having some communication with her today. We should have a free cash number by the end of the week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's looking pretty good.
Good. Oh, that's great. Deb, so I have one question. I think I just spaced out for a minute while you were explaining this about the shift, the permanent part-time position. So the budgeted funds there, since the position's unfilled, are currently supporting your use of the assessor's assistant, and that's really what that line is going for now, since the position's not currently filled.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, so for, fiscal year 23, we're under budget because she's only working 16 hours a week versus 25 hours a week.
Okay. And your expectation for 24 is that it will go up to the 25?
Yes, that would be the hope. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that just aren't getting done.
Yeah.
We're making it work, but it'd be really nice to be fully staffed.
Okay, got it. Thanks. I just spaced out when you went through that before. That's great. Anybody else with questions for Deb?
And sorry, just to follow up on that question, is that the number going to go up because you're going to hire someone, or you're going to make more use of the assistant hours?
It's really undetermined at this point. My position currently is still interim, so it depends what happens with my position, and to see then we'll have to go from there to see what's going on.
Thanks.
Just writing a quick note here. Okay, great. And anybody, last call, anybody else? Okay, great. Thanks, Deb. That was great.
Thank you.
So we'll now do the most important one of all. And give me a second here to get that up. There's not really much to talk about here, but just so that we can say that we did it. Okay, so advisory's budget. Deb, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about this. There's not really a lot here. I just comment, the one thing when I looked over this that I puzzled over a little bit and talked about with Steve T was the clerk, and that's the idea of hiring someone to take minutes at the public hearing. So I will get to work on figuring that out. But Deb, anything else that you wanted to say on this?
No, just, we kind of kept it the same as everybody else, where the 4.5% increase for the stipend, but it didn't really seem like we needed to increase the whole budget by $23. So I just took the $23 out of the postage and made it, level funded at $4,500.
Okay. Anybody want to come at this with vicious attacks and concerns? Jane, please jump in.
I hope it's not a
So-
vicious attack and concern, but I'm just curious though, if everybody else's postage seems to be going up so much, if it's realistic for ours to be going down.
Well, to be quite honest, the postage is paid out of town buildings now. We have a postage meter, so all the postage, unless it has to go to the post office, goes through the town building meter.
So then the postage line here is, I mean, this is getting way deep in the weeds about inconsequential sums of money, but the postage line here then is covering,
I guess, it's just the way it's always been. I mean, if you look at FY22, you have 0 postage, and that's because it went through the town building postage meter.
so I was just gonna say, maybe this could just be zeroed out and advisory could be leading the way on, bringing budgets down.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Unless somebody else who's done this longer than I have may know some reason why that's a bad idea. But if it's really all going through town building, so there's really not anything, I mean, again, this is really just for fun because it's an inconsequential amount of money. But Jane, did you have another comment on that or?
No, I just wanted to make sure I understood. So it's just the advisory postage that goes through town buildings, right? These other budgets that we're talking about don't also go through town buildings. Is that correct?
Well, it depends, like by department, like in the accounting budget, we don't have postage any longer because it goes through town building. But things like the treasurer, where she sends out all the accounts payable bills and things like that, she buys pre-postage envelopes because it's cheaper to do that. And I believe the collector's office does it that way too. Different departments, maybe like the Board of Health uses the postage meter, unless they have to do a certified mailing, and they might have some postage for that kind of thing. But a lot of the day-to-day things go through the postage meter.
So is it fair to say that if we're seeing a postage line item on a budget, it means that that department is doing its own postage? And if we don't see a postage line item, it would be going through town buildings? I'm just trying to make sure we're not, getting ourselves confused and double counting.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Jackie has her hand up because her department is one of the departments that's unusual as well, because they have their own postage meter in their office.
Jackie,
Correct.
please go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I have my own postage meter, because we need our own because of all the dog licenses and all the mail that we send out for voter registrations and vitals and, all the ballots and stuff. So I have my own specific postage meters just for Department 161 and 62.
And I'm guessing Pam has the same for sending out tax bills.
That's correct. I
Yeah.
actually, use a company that mails them out. But I buy the pre-posted envelopes also.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so why don't we, since I didn't hear any concerns, why don't we just zero that line out?
Okay, we'll do.
And advisory can be at the vanguard of holding the line on budgets this year.
All righty.
Okay, great. Thanks, Deb. Anybody with any last comments, concerns, issues on any of the budgets that we've talked about, or any process issues as we look ahead?
So Dan, we have a lot of runners in town. Can we just have them come to town hall, pick up all the mail and just, set up their routes and go deliver to folks in Sherborn?
Yeah, so that's a great idea. And with the snowcat that the Sherborn Forest and Trails Association is doing, people after the snowstorms are out on the trails on cross-country skis, so they could easily do some of that as well. Yeah. Seems like big opportunity there for some postage. Anybody else? Okay, well, this was a good start, I think, to a good start to budget season. Before we wrap up, let me just mention our next meeting is Wednesday, January 11th. So this is the only Tuesday meeting we're having, and I appreciate people's flexibility in doing that because that was my conflicted constraint that got us to Tuesday this week. But it's a week from tomorrow, January 11th, for our next meeting. And we are scheduled to hear from Historical Commission, Veterans, Town Forest, cemetery, elder housing, council on aging, recreation, and the library. So that's what's up for us on the 11th. Anybody else with any last comments, announcements before we wrap up? Okay, the last thing I have to say is Heidi Doyle gets the prize for correctly guessing how long the meeting would go. So kudos to you, Heidi, for nailing that within 3 minutes. We started late, so really you got it exactly right.
Were we doing minutes though, Dan? Were we approving minutes?
Oh, yes, we are. Thank you. I'm jumping. Heidi, you're not going to quite nail it. Thank you, Steve. I'm jumping ahead here. Give me a second. I'll pop the minutes up on the screen. Have too many sheets of paper in front of me and doing too many things at the same time. So here they are. I don't know if I only sent them out mid-afternoon, so I don't know if people had a chance to look at them. So I will just slowly scroll through, and please just jump in with any comments, corrections, changes.
Just a typo in the first paragraph where it says schools under liaison reports.
Yes.
It says Pine Hill School proposed budget increased 8.5% increase. So I think maybe we need to take that second increase out.
Yep. Thank you. That's great. Okay. Anybody see anything else? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended on screen.
I second.
So
Perfect.
moved.
And I think I heard a second in there, so we'll call that moved and seconded. So quick roll call. Jane.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Steve G.
Aye.
Nora.
Aye.
Wasim.
I abstain. I wasn't there.
Okay, you're welcome to vote if you like, but abstaining is fine if you prefer. Mike. Great. And Natalie.
Aye.
And I am I as well. Great. Okay. So that's set. So Heidi, I think you're still in good shape on your forecast. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I think we're done for tonight.
So moved.
Second. Excellent. So let's just take a quick vote. Jane.
Aye.
Steve T.
Aye.
Steve G.
Aye.
Nora.
Aye.
Wasim.
Aye.
Mike. All right. Natalie.
Aye.
And I am I as well. We are adjourned. Thanks very much, everybody. See you a week from tomorrow.
Aye.
Good night.
Good night.
You.